morning, and thank you for joining our webinar on College Admissions 101 for our in-state colleges and universities. I am Yoruba Butler, and I serve as the Strategy Director for Post-Secondary Access at Alabama Possible. We're pleased to have some incredible presenters with us today to discuss this subject matter. They are Stephanie Miller, the Director of Financial Aid with the Alexander Campus of Central Alabama Community College, Charles E. Stallworth, Vice President of Enrollment Management with Miles College, and Noel M. Stovall, the Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions and Recruitment with Jacksonville State University. They will be introducing themselves momentarily and will share information about what they're looking for in an applicant, testing requirements, scholarship opportunities, suggestions on how you can work with your students regarding the 24-25 26 FAFSA, and any other highlights pertaining to their individual institutions. We'd like to recognize and thank our sponsors for supporting this work and making this webinar possible. Without their support, Alabama Possible would not be able to provide the assistance that we do without a participation fee. The Alabama Goes to College campaign works closely with several partners to implement the initiatives that we're going to discuss today. Thank you to our great partners, the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, Alabama Community College System, the Alabama State Department of Education, and Get Educated, the Common Black College application that helps promote applying and enrolling at least 65 historically Black colleges and universities. Now, let's go over a few housekeeping notes. Before we get started, please make sure to keep your microphones on mute at all times to avoid feedback during the presentation. A few more things before we dive into the content. Please share your community. Please share your commitment to building a college-going culture on social media at AL Goes to College and Alabama Achieves. And please use the following hashtags so that we can all see and learn from each other's work. Now, if you logged in a little bit late, no worries. We just want to make sure that you're registered for the Alabama Goes to College campaign. High schools can sign up at alabamapossible.org/2024-25. For your convenience, we'll go ahead and drop that in the chat. And we do want to let you know on the registration form, the schools are listed alphabetically, so there is a way for you to know if your school has already registered. If you do not see your school on the list, please feel free to go ahead and register. But if you do see your name on the list, you don't have to submit it again because we only need one submission per school. Now, if you're new to Alabama Goes to College, this is a statewide effort that works to ensure every student can plan for, pursue, and complete valuable post-secondary credentials. There are 3 components of the Alabama Goes to College campaign. All of them aim to support students to and through their post-secondary journeys and into their careers. First, we have Cash for College. The Cash for College's goal is for every graduating senior to complete the FAFSA, which of course everyone knows is the free application for federal student aid, before they graduate from high school so that they can access federal, state, and institutional aid to pay for their education after high school. Second is the Alabama Goes to College campaign, which we know all of you are actively engaged since it will be next week. And the Alabama College Application Campaign is part of the national effort to increase the number of first-generation college students and students from low-income families pursuing a college degree or other higher education credential. The primary purpose of this effort is to help high school seniors navigate the complex college application and admissions process to ensure that they apply to at least one post secondary institution. And third is our College and Career Decision Day. College and Career Decision Day celebrates students' commitment to pursuing their education past high school, whether to obtain a 2 year degree, a 4 year degree, a certificate, or industry recognized credential, entering the military, or pursuing a skilled trade. Now, we're going to have our first poll question, which is what factor is most important to your students as they decide where to apply? May, if you would deploy that for us now, please.
Okay, close to 80% of attendees have responded, so I'm going to give it a few more seconds. But these are things that hopefully our panelists will address during our discussion today. So the highest percentage we have is cost of attendance being the biggest factor at 56%. Second to that is major or program options at 22%. And then the next highest is location at 12%. So we always know the financial piece of college is top of mind for students. So we will be touching on that at some point during today's webinar. And of course, all of our institutions will talk a little bit to the majors and programs that they offer, or at least how students would be able to explore those at their respective schools. So I appreciate your responses. I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll now. And then we're actually going to go on to a brief bit of data before we have our conversation today. So, before we get into it with our panelists, we just want to highlight the importance of post secondary education and training, which of course can encompass many different pathways. So, what we're looking at here is data from the Labor Market Information Division of the Alabama Department of Labor. They produce occupational projections for over 800 occupations. Here we see job growth by level of education typically needed for entry into that job. So this is going to be the growth from 2020 to 2030. And we see the highest growth for post secondary groups. So these right here. Um, Starting with the jobs that require post secondary non degree awards, growing at around 8.6%, and then going all the way up to 15.5% for jobs requiring master's degrees. As you can see, the projected job growth for the post secondary pathways in bullets 3 through 7, that growth is much higher than the projected job growth for a job that just requires a high school diploma or some college no degree. So we want students to understand that their employment options really open up when they pursue and attain a post secondary credential. And then I'm sure many of your students have heard this before, but the occupations that typically require post secondary credentials also have higher wages. So jobs requiring no formal education credential are the lowest earning, with annual median wages of $22,251, while jobs requiring a bachelor's degree have annual median wages of $65,967. So we just wanted to highlight this. Obviously, there are many options that your students can pursue, but just to get them thinking about the importance of these post secondary pathways and what path they want to choose for themselves. I know each of our institutions will talk about the unique options that they have. So I will go ahead and turn it back over to Yoruba.
Okay, May, thank you so much. So to touch upon the college application week, which we know is next Monday through Friday, first of all, we want to wish all of you much success. But if for any reason you need any assistance or you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. We did want to make sure that we shared that a lot of the information for college application week, as far as the waiver codes and the list of schools, was included in our newsletter this morning, but if by chance you did not receive it and or you have any questions or need assistance, please reach out to us and we'll have all of our contact information at the one of the last slides on the webinar. So next, we want to share that as a participant, you will receive a PDF version of this presentation, allowing you to access our Educators Toolkit, which also includes our Educators Handbook and our Student and Family Guidebook, which we encourage you to share widely with your students and your families. On this slide, these are hyperlinked. So they will take you directly to the document to online, but we do want to make sure these are very helpful resources, so please feel free to share them with your students and their families. Next, here is a reminder that we do have a help desk, and it's available to our educators, community leaders, students, and families. And they can reach us either by phone, by calling us, or also by text using the number 334-316-6155, and we are available Monday through Friday with the exception of any holidays during regular business hours. So we do want to encourage you as educators also to use this number if you have any questions, but to also share this with your students and their family members. Now, let's get into the meat of our webinar. As I call the names of our guests, we ask that you all give your name, the institution that you represent, and the best piece of advice that you would give to an educator regarding the admissions process at your institution and how they can best assist our students. Our presenters will go in the following order. We'll have Stephanie Miller, Charles Stallworth, and Noel Stovall. All right, Stephanie, the floor is yours.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Stephanie Miller, and I am from Central Alabama Community College. I'm the Director of Financial Aid here at Central Alabama, and we have 4 campus locations. And while the majority of the time I spend at Alexander City, I do go to Childersburg, our Childersburg campus, our Talladega campus, and our Prattville campus on various days throughout the week, along with some other staff that do the same. So I guess the one word of advice that I would tell educators about the admissions process is that for community colleges in the state of Alabama, our application is completely free all the time. We also have an open access policy, so anyone can apply, even if they haven't taken the ACT score. We do require a GED or high school diploma or its equivalent, as it meets the U.S. Department of Education requirements. Although our school does offer the GED, so if someone needs that, and if they get their GED, they get a free class, so that's good. So I would say that we are open admissions, and if a student does not have an appropriate score on their final high school transcript for math or English, we take a placement test and we can see where they place in that to see which course they need to be in, whether it be a lower course for a remedial or a higher course where they can go straight into those things. But the one thing I would say is when your student applies to a community college, please help them to make sure that they apply for the correct term and look at the degree that they want. Some aren't familiar with what a transfer degree means versus like a career technical degree like welding, or maybe a technical degree in business versus maybe an associate's degree in general studies. Currently, we don't have pathways in the state of Alabama. We might later on, but in general studies, where more core classes would then transfer to, say, one of the four-year schools like Jacksonville State University. So just to have them, give them a little bit of education on that, and then to make sure that we at the college get their final high school transcript. We can't process any financial aid until we get that financial high school that final high school transcript showing that the student graduated. So that's a lot of times in the summer, we are waiting to process a student's aid until we get that transcript. I would love for us to be able to do that as an estimate, like some schools do, but with the Alabama Community College systems, they require that to be on file before we can process any federal aid, even if we already have the FAFSA. So that's it in a nutshell about the admissions. I can go on and on about financial aid, but we'll hand it off to Noel to talk about their process.
Well, greetings, everyone. I am Charles Stallworth, the Vice President of Enrollment Management here at Miles College. I would echo what my fellow panelists has intimated to everyone, Miss Stephanie Miller. And so at Miles College, we use the Black Common app that was mentioned earlier by Miss Yoruba Butler. So it is a free application for our institution as well. We are also open admissions or open enrollment for a plethora of people that come on different levels to our campus. We do, however, have an ACT score or a GPA requirement, but that's only for our institutional scholarships that we can award, which go from a bridge scholarship to a dean scholarship as well as a presidential. And I'm happy to say that we will be also adding 2 additional levels of institutional scholarships coming in for our fall semester of 2025. A piece of advice to give you all in reference to your selection, in reference to Miles College, our unique dichotomy is that we are a historically Black college and institution or university at HBCU. There are only 13 in Alabama, and we're the only one in the greater Jefferson County area in Birmingham metropolitan area. And of course, if any of you all have been looking at the news, we probably will be in a new location come the fall, which will be very advantageous for the institution to help cultivate and preserve the Birmingham Southern campus. In lieu of that, we offer 30 majors, one of which being interdisciplinary studies. And I would love to get with Miss Stephanie Miller so that we can form an MOU agreement since we just began that bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies this fall. A couple of things when you're selecting your institution, look at the institution that, of course, represents you, has a lot of your ideals, has, of course, the major, and is soft on the pockets so that you don't have too much debt when you leave. And one bit of advice to all of our persons in attendance, make sure your students apply for all sorts of scholarships that may not be related to whatever institution they select. There's a plethora of aid that can be acquired before they even get to the college, but their choice. So I would definitely put that as a best promoting factor. And I hope that we can talk some more on this panel discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for having me. I'm Noelle Stovall. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Jacksonville State University. I work directly with the admissions counselors who are recruiting our students across the state, the Southeast, and the country. For me, I would say just a few bits of advice for Jack State and many other colleges and universities. We're participating in Free Week, but we do have other opportunities for free applications. For us, we do No Fee November. Our Title I schools are always application fee free. We give free applications to students who have been in dual enrollment with Jack State, and we give away codes for preview day events, tours, things like that. The 2 biggest pieces of advice that I try to give students and their counselors if they're thinking of Jack State is we are test optional, so our students can get admission and be automatically reviewed for scholarships, for merit-based scholarships based on their GPA. But the students, we still want them to send their test scores. We would love for them to, because that test score we have the test optional, but we're also test blind, which just means if you do send your test score and the students have one that's advantageous to them to get a higher scholarship, we will award that scholarship, and we will even upgrade. Say we award them one scholarship based on GPA in October, and then they take the April ACT and they get a higher score, we'll upgrade that test score through May 1st. So we need that official test score in order to do that, and in order for them to qualify for other scholarships as well. So we want them to send that test score to us. Again, we're test blind, so if it's great and it's advantageous, we use it. If it's not so cute, we pretend we don't see it. And the other thing is, because we offer so many free application options. I encourage students to apply and see. Jacksonville State, I like to call it the best of both worlds. We have opportunities of a large university, but the feel of a smaller university. And a lot of students don't know that until they apply or admitted and maybe come on campus. And I think wherever your students are looking at, they need to be on campus. They need to take that campus tour. If that's not a possibility, so many of us now have virtual tours, especially after COVID, where they can really see, see the campus. They can meet with admissions counselors. We want the students to really picture themselves at our university and at our colleges, so they can see that they have a place where they can belong and be challenged to grow. My final, just practical thing for counselors is when the students are filling out the application, be sure that they try to encourage them, because I know it's hard, to put in their information for their information. So their email instead of their parents' email, their cell phone number instead of their parents' cell phone number. For us and many others, we have a parent section where they can put in their parents' information and give us permission to send information to their parents. We copy parents on a lot of emails if the students give us permission. But we really need their information on there so we can ensure that the students are getting the information that they need all throughout the admissions process and as a student, because a lot of that information from our CRMs roll into Banner and the information they're getting as a student as well. So please encourage them to put their information under them and parent information under the parent.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I know this was not on our list of questions, Noel, and I hope that this doesn't catch you off guard. But since you do have a parent section on the application, does that roll over with the student providing permission for the parent to be included on correspondence, or as far as the FERPA is considered, or is that a different form?
No, that's a great question. So with our application, the students if they put in their parent information, we are going to copy them on information through just the admission cycle. So we will, when we're sending the student updates or event invites, we copy the parents so they can see that information. And we're really careful with how we address students, the information that we use within those emails if the parent is copied. The parents are not copied on admissions decisions where there's login credentials and things like that. But then we direct the parent with information about our parent portal, which is what they'll use for their FERPA waiver and any other permissions. As a current student, we'll go through a parent portal we have, so that is separate.
Okay. All right. Great. And my other two colleagues, you all are more than welcome to chime in on that. It crossed my mind when Noel mentioned it, but how do you, or do you all also, when do you provide information about the FERPA for the students and the families so that they understand what FERPA is actually?
Most definitely 2 locations and 2 times at Miles. When our students or prospective students and parents inquire about it, we send the FERPA form to them with the description of what it stands for. And then again, after they're admitted and enrolled and come to Miles, either in person or virtually, they receive that in their orientation to understand what FERPA is and what it allows for both the parent and the student, especially with the whole little mantra. If the parent is paying for everything, do they need to have access or, add the student's permission if that's permissible?
Okay, great. And Stephanie, I know it's super important on your end since it's financial aid related. So is it done differently with financial aid outside of the registrar or academic records?
So with us, we do require a FERPA form. We do have a FERPA form that the student can check, like registrar, financial aid, various things on it. And prior to just recently, the parent or whoever they put on the form had to actually come into campus with a picture ID. Now it's not that way. They have a code that they have to give, like over the phone, and have to have certain information to get that. But our FERPA form does have a spot to say financial aid, or we don't release it just because it's a FERPA form. We also have the ability to have the parent information put on the FAFSA as well. I mean, not FAFSA, excuse me, on the admissions application as well. We do not have the parent portal. I hope we have that one day, but we do not have that right now. But but yeah, so it is extremely important. And we also talk about it when we talk about when we have our orientation classes, as well as our new student orientation about FERPA and what it means for each individual office that's on our campus, the business office or the registrar academics. The student has the right to choose. Yes, I want, the student records to be able to do this. I want financial aid to be able to do this, or the business office. Even, like academics, like my instructor to talk to my parent, which I'll be honest, I don't know that instructors prefer that, because they're like, hey, this is college. But but they do understand. So they have the right to, choose those different options on our form.
All right. Thank you so much. So, to my panelists, I know that was a new question. That was not one of the ones that I sent. So, I just want to thank you all for jumping in and kind of going with the flow. But for our educators, we do want to make sure that you all are aware this is going to be a cross conversation. Again, if you as our participants, our educators that are online, if you all have any questions, please make sure you drop them in the chat, and our goal is to make sure that we address all of them during our Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. So with all of that being said, I know that we did touch upon the admissions process, but one of the questions is, what does your institution do to attract students to your said college or university? And I'll leave that open to any of you all.
So I'll go first, just right quick, like in reference to our Black Common app, and then to any of our students, our prospective students, and of course with just recruiting, since admissions and recruitment, financial aid, some advising, academic records, that falls under my auspices. We try to give the whole feel of the small HBCU. Of course, there's only 107 HBCUs in the United States, and Miles College is one of those. But we like to try to come with the fact that Miles is the entire package, like our bigger brothers and sisters in the HBCU world. Yes, we're a smaller HBCU than, let's say, a FAMU and located in Florida, but we have everything. We have the sports, we have the Greek life, we have all those co-curricular activities. And the attraction is that small home of Southern beauty that can take you no matter where you are with our open admissions policy, and take you to becoming a member of the global society once you graduate from Miles College. And I think the other thing is the whole family atmosphere. I know that's really akin to most smaller institutions, no matter the historical dynamics. And that's what, makes Miles great. And we try to sell that point, of course, undergirded by, of course, our academics with business, psychology, and now artificial intelligence is one of our minors, being one of our selling points. But psychology, I can speak on super quickly, being a major that was only added 6 years ago, and is now our third most popular major amongst our students. And it is also 81% female. And we just love the fact that that's just a new major, that's that new attraction for Miles with our 30 undergraduate programs.
All right. Well, I will say that we here at CAC, we like to let students know that our class sizes are typically smaller. Kind of everybody knows your name, that whole family. With our classes being at the community college, a little more condensed, I would say, with the number of students per classes, to get that one-on-one interaction if needed. We also like to talk about that we are very cost effective. And no offense to my, my schools here, my friends here at the other colleges, but, when we talk about English, especially if you struggle in English or math, it might do you well to be in a smaller class size, as well as not just that. If it's the same English that's going to transfer to Miles or JSU, you can take that here. Currently, our tuition rate is $170 per credit hour, and that includes tuition and fees, with the exception of one $5 fee per semester. And of course, that's subject to change. And of course, books. But on our basic courses for English right now, or for math, or any of our academic courses, or our career technical courses, with the exception of nursing, has a couple of extra fees. And then we have some insurance fees for our career technical programs like welding. But $170 per credit hour covers all the fees and everything except for your books and that one $5 fee. So that's a great selling point for us. And we also have opened up to some sports and things like that. So we do get some transfers from the 4 years that come down to the 2 year, as well as some straight out of high school that some are ready for the big leagues, we're going to call it, and then some are, hey, we need that 2 year to make sure that we get our grades before we move on to that 4 year. So we use those as our selling points.
Awesome. And I would just add for us, so Jacksonville State, we're known as the friendliest campus in the South, and that's a moniker we've had since the 60s. And it's something we really try to live up to. We understand that many colleges and universities, we all have things that are, in common, things that are unique. But we do feel like the culture of Jack State is something that is, attractive to students. Like I mentioned earlier, we have kind of the best of both worlds, being able to have larger school opportunities like Division I athletics, over 101 academic programs, having unique programs, having research on campus and all of those things. But at the same time, we give that small school feel where students get into all the athletic events for free, and our classroom sizes have an average of 19. Of course, our intro class is going to be around 100 students, but that's our largest classroom on campus. If you're doing like an intro biology course. And then, we do have grants in biology doing cancer cell research, but we have students in their sophomore year who are able to be a part of that. And we have a lab in psychology where they're teaching rats to do certain behaviors. And we have those things that are hands-on, and it's not just our graduate students that are able to take part in that. And I think that's really unique for a university that has those offerings, to have it be so accessible to students as well. I always like to say that Jack State is a place where anybody can be welcomed. We have a place for everyone, regardless of your background or what you're interested in, but it's at the same time a safe place to be challenged to become who you want to be for what's next in your life. So
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I see we do have some questions coming through specifically for you, Stephanie. So we'll get those during Q&A. We did touch upon the testing, but I did want to ask, as far as placement exams, is that something that all of your freshmen take upon arrival, or do you all use grades as well from high school to do placement? How is that done?
At CAC, we use the grades from high school. We can also use the ACT scores if we have an ACT score, since it's not required here. But we can use both of those to determine if the student needs that. If the student needs a placement test, or some, let's be honest, we have a lot of non-traditional students coming in with the economy and things like that. They're coming in to get different credentials, and that's another thing. We offer a senior waiver for senior students that are over the age of 60, which I know may not apply to all of us here, but just as a side note, they can actually get free tuition, not the fees, but the tuition, which currently is $129 per credit hour. And so they actually get free tuition as an adult senior. But we will use that. But we have a lot of students that come in that maybe they took a gap year and they just want to take the placement test, to see if they are at level. So we will give the placement test to everyone to determine what they need, or if their high school or their ACT score meets that particular criteria for English or math, then we will use that unless the student requests to take it.
And I echo what Ms. Miller, Stephanie says as well. At Miles, we do have our AccuPlacer placement test to help with our developmental courses or fundamental courses, just for that extra strengthening. And we also offer those courses during our summer semester. So if a prospective student wants to come during summer school, they can take it during that session. So when they do begin in the fall, they're still on track to graduate in the 4-year time schedule. And then, of course, we do look at the ACT scores, both the composite and the individual scores, just to see if that student needs to take particular placements particularly in either English, reading, and mathematics. If it's a fine score, then we just put them in our standard English composition classes and 101 classes and higher. But if they do need that extra support, then it's provided through that developmental and fundamental course.
So at Jack State, unless a student has already taken their first English or first math required by their degree program, we do require them to take the Ed Ready placement. This will give students, and it's just in English and math. In English, we'll use that for placement, and any of we don't have remedial courses, but we may have a writing lab that is embedded in a student's English course if that is a need. Or students may, be able to be in an honors English course. And then for math, the students will take that initial Ed Ready test, and then they will be given a study path. They'll work that study path up to the score they need for their first math course. Once they work that study path, they are able to register in that course.
Wonderful. Okay, so I know we discussed test scores, but I want to say that I know with our community colleges, test scores are not required, but I did want to ask, and I'm going to combine a couple of questions so you all touch upon what you think is most pertinent. But with your test scores, can they be on the college transcript, or do they have to have them submitted directly from the college board? Will they be acceptable on the transcript?
We require it to be straight from the college board, ACT, SAT, and not on a prior school's transcript.
Okay.
We accept it from ACT, SAT, or from the transcript directly from the counselor.
And that would be the same directly from ACT and SAT, separate from the transcript.
Okay. So I know that we also said that some of it is test optional. But if you have a student that initially wanted to do test optional, but then they realized that their test scores could assist them in getting scholarships, would their test scores be acceptable after acceptance, or does that waive them from a possibility of receiving scholarships? I get merit scholarships, I guess I should say.
So our scholarships at CAC, with the exception of one previously, did not require the ACT, SAT scores because it's not required for our college. We did have one scholarship that was based on the ACT, SAT. If you got a certain score, then you could be considered for that scholarship. But because it's not required for our school, we don't use that for scholarship purposes unless we have a scholarship that does require it.
And at Miles, we have, of course, our 3 institutional scholarships that are based on ACT or SAT scores. One of them is only based on just the high school GPA. So if you come with a 2.75 from high school, but did not take the ACT or higher, then you receive what is called our Bridge Scholarship to bridge the gap during your 4 years at Miles. It's a $10,000 scholarship. But if you do get here, I'm happy to say it was voted upon this past March. And let's say you did not come with a scholarship, but you just beat the field and you just come and you earn a great GPA, then we now have retention scholarships that you can earn after you get to Miles. But unfortunately, with our 3 institutional scholarships that require the ACT scores, that is due by May 1st of each year for the upcoming fall of that same year. But of course, our athletic scholarships and our band and cheer scholarships, that's just based off performance and talent. But other than that, the academic institution scholarships do require an ACT score, except for one of them.
And at Jack State, we don't require the students to choose if they're test optional, test blind. They all just are. So we'll do the admissions based off of their GPA, and we take that off the transcript through the junior year initially, and then we'll ask for the final transcript the summer after they graduate. So the students are test optional at all times, and then they can send their official test score to us at any time. As I mentioned earlier, they may get a scholarship soon after admission, and then if they send us a higher ACT or SAT score that bumps them up in scholarship, we will re-award the new scholarship. That's through May 1st, so it's important that we get the score through May 1st. But if a student next summer decides, hey, I want to go to Jack State after May 1st, then they can apply and be offered a scholarship after May 1st. And then finally, the students would need to send a test score if they are planning to apply for the honors or leadership scholarship. Those are freshman competitive scholarships that do require a test score, and those are due February 1st. So there's some instances where we want that test score and we want it sooner, but it's not going to hurt anything with admissions. It's more for the scholarship side of things. Any of our students can be admitted to Jack State just off their GPA, so test optional, of course, for that. But we do need to clarify that our students who are going into nursing will require, or respiratory therapy will require a test score for that specific program to get into that program. They don't need it their freshman year. They'll actually be required to take the ACT as part of their advisement before they get into the nursing program. But that is one thing that they will need an ACT score eventually if they are planning to go into those programs.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. So before we go into any other questions, I know when we did our poll that the three major areas were finances, major, and location. So before we go to our general questions, is there any other information that you all would like to share about your institution? I want to make sure we don't miss any scholarship discussion or any major content as far as curriculum that you all wanted to discuss before we go into our last set of questions.
Just one comment. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No, no,
Mel.
no, go ahead.
No. Okay, I know. Um, Finally, after so many years of dedicated work at Miles, we will be offering our first master's level program beginning in January. So I'm really happy about that. It's a master's in business administration with a concentration in sports management. We listened to our students in our surveys, and we found that a minor in sports management that we already have, and just going to the next level. And so I think that's going to be great for the institution. And of course, with that starting in January, on the horizon will thankfully be the level and the name change from Miles College to Miles University.
And I would also like to add, I know Mr. Stallworth, he mentioned something about an MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. We have several of those. We have one with Auburn, one with AUM. We just recently signed one with Auburn for nursing, where the students can take the courses here at CAC or even simultaneously at the university and get those credits and still get financial aid at CAC, or depending on the program, sometimes it's at the other university and coming to CAC for those classes. So those are a lot of pathways for students who may be going into a transfer program to be able to say, hey, I can take these classes and I will be for sure admitted into JSU, or for sure admitted into Miles College or University, hopefully soon, or 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 any other place that we have those partnerships with our four-year partners to help them get into that career path that they want to go with.
Awesome. And one that's so exciting for Miles, and I think one thing that's cool about our state, and when we see each other at conferences or on panels like this, we all get really excited for each other and what we're doing, because we know that success at any university or college in the state is success for our state and our students. And I think that's awesome, and something that I hope as students are choosing, do I stay in state, do I go out of state, that the culture that we have among the colleges and universities is something that they consider. But I would say for Jacksonville State, as far as last things, with our students in their first 2 years, and a lot of students are taking their general education courses. For many of our majors, they're going to start their major programs in their freshman year as well, sophomore year, unless it's one they have to be accepted into, such as nursing or education. But most of our students have to take general education, and something that Jack State has started or launched this year is something called Jack's Mix, and it's mixing innovation and experience. So with that, the students will take their general education courses, and it gives them a focus. So during their general education courses, they will have a focus that may be ethical leadership, global stewardship, environmental stewardship. So there are so many things, that they can focus in. And because they have a focus, it helps them determine when it comes to things like, okay, which of these humanities do I need to take? And which of these are going to feed best into my major? It gives them a pathway, even in their general education courses, through that focus. The second level to that is, along with those classes in that focus, the students will have events and advisement with their academic advisor. And with that combined with their classes, they will actually get a micro credential at the end of their 2 years, at the end of that program. So they will already have a focused micro credential just based off their general education courses before they go into their major coursework. And the reason for that, of course, is, we want our students to go ahead and have a focus and have a pathway even through general education, knowing that many of our students are coming to us. Maybe they know exactly what they want to do. Maybe they think they know what they want to do, but a lot of them just really aren't sure. And we do have a pathway for students called integrated studies, where they can either create a customized degree, or they can start there and take classes that are still going to go towards a major, saving them time and money. But with Jax Mix, it gives that even a greater focus. And it's something I'm really excited about. It's branded, it's got a cute, rooster logo, all those things. But it gives students something to work through, even in their first 2 years. For our students who go to a community college and transfer into Jax State, they can bring their general education work they're transferring in, and that can go towards the Jax Mix micro credentials as well. So we didn't leave out our transfer students. And as Stephanie mentioned with the pathways, but Jax State does have transfer prep and MOU with our community colleges across the state. And we know that students who, go to those community colleges, get an associate's degree, are more likely to persist into their bachelor's degree. So we do have great partnerships there. Whether we get or we have great opportunities, whether the students start with us their first year, their freshman year, or if they come to us after transferring, or maybe they come to us for a master's or doctoral program.
Excellent. Thank you. So with all the questions that I had sent you all earlier, we really need 2 hours to do this, but we won't. So let's jump into any questions. Did we have any questions in the chat, May, that we need to address?
We had one that Stephanie already responded to, but I figured I would say it aloud just in case not everyone can look at the chat. So we had a question about transcripts, whether when students are applying, if they're supposed to send one during the application process and then a final transcript later. And Stephanie was responding that they do accept a current in progress transcript so that the college can determine scholarship through GPAs and everything. And then when the final transcript is available, that will also be sent along as well. And then we had one question, I believe, for JSU. Will the ACT scores from high school be accepted if they meet a certain score at JSU for admissions into nursing or respiratory therapy?
Yes. So if they took their ACT and they have that score that they need for those programs as a student, they do not have to continue taking the ACT test. It's only if a student comes into Jacksonville State, they're planning to go in that program, they don't have the ACT score yet, we require them to continue to take that test because we don't want the student to get to their junior year and they're ready to apply and they haven't taken the ACT again, and then it puts them behind for acceptance if they have that like one shot right before they apply. So we want to encourage those students to be building that before they even get to the application process, because again, we want to set them up for success. But if your students do have the ACT or SAT score they need as a high school senior, we do have the Dean's Early Acceptance Program, where this is online on the Jax State Health Professions and Wellness website, but they can be accepted early into that, where they already have that kind of guaranteed acceptance into the program as long as they persist and they keep up the GPA and the other requirements that are needed.
Awesome. Those are all of the questions that we have in the chat, Yoruba.
I do want to mention one thing, if you guys don't mind, about the high school transcript. Let's say the student did not take the ACT score. They've already applied to CAC in the spring for fall, and they want to go ahead and get registered. When our registration opens, we will allow them to do so. But we do need that in progress transcript, not just necessarily for scholarships, but we would do that so that we could see some of their scores. They're also welcome to take the placement test as well. We give that multiple times per week. We have a link on our website that anybody can come and take that placement test once they've done an admissions application. So I did want to mention that. Um, and so if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll be glad to help you. Even if it's not at my school, I'll be glad to give you the resources that you need.
Thank you so much. And though we don't have time to discuss it now, Stephanie is going to provide us with some links regarding information for VA benefits, and also students who are children of first responders who have passed in the line of duty. So you can make sure that we'll send that to you in our follow-up email. All right, May, I know we're tight for time, but I want to make sure you can get your survey done.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and launch our first set of poll questions for educators. So you should see 2 questions on your screen now. After you complete these, please keep hanging around because we do have another set of questions to come right after. I want to make sure that we get your response to both of those sets. But I'm going to give it about 1 minute for everyone to respond to these first 2 questions. All right, we have close to 80%, so I'm going to give it about 10 more seconds, and then I'm going to close out this poll and go on to the next set. All right, closing this poll now, and then you should see launched on your screen in just a moment another set of questions. And while you are completing this set of questions, I'm also going to have on the screen the professional development credit information that you'll need. So the link to Power School, and then the course number and the section number for you to be able to claim your credit. All right, Yoruba, we have 80%, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to close us out.
Hey, May, there's a question. If we registered on Power School, PD will get credit automatically? Question mark.
So no, there are several components that make you eligible for credit. So first, you'll register for the Zoom event, which you've already done because you're here. So when you're registered on Zoom, we will track your attendance. So we ensure that everyone has attended the majority of the webinar. So there's a duration component. Then we check that you've responded to all of the poll questions during the webinar. After that, you'll click the Power School link and you'll enter in the course number and section number. And if there's anything that you have to respond to there, make sure to do so within 48 hours. So it's both doing the part on Alabama Possible's end with Zoom registration, attendance, and poll questions, and then everything in the Power School end. So there are multiple checks in place to ensure you got credit.
All right, excellent. Thank you, May, so much. All right, so we have a few items regarding save the date links. So we want, of course, everyone knows we have Alabama College Application Week next week. We did want to make certain that you get on your calendar, since we're already in the month of October. Who knew that already? But we do have our Cash for College, which is our FAFSA 101 webinar on October 23rd at 10:30. So we will have a registration link out there for you on our events page very soon, so that you could go ahead and get registered for that. We also want to extend an invitation to you all to participate in our Forging Forward dinner and conversation, which will be at the Florentine on Thursday, November 7th at 6 p.m. And then, of course, we want to make sure that all of our counselors are aware that the Alabama Counseling Association, your fall conference, will be at the Renaissance Montgomery. And the pre-conference events will be on November 19th, where the conference itself will be held the 20th through the 22nd. And all of these links are being included on the PowerPoint or the PDF that you all will receive after the webinar for your convenience. But last but not least, we want to make sure that you all know to always stay connected with us. You can reach us either on our website, at our telephone number, which is 334-316-6155. That's our help desk. And we just want to thank you so much for attending. And we want to thank our panelists. You all were exceptional. If you would drop an email in the chat in which someone can reach your Office of Admissions, or if there's someone specifically that they should reach out to, and then that way we can also include that in our outgoing email. But again, thank you all so much for being here today. This is always such a well-attended webinar, and have a great rest of your afternoon.